Don't worry. It's going to be okay. Remember, this is the second to last thing we do, okay, before we finish our service in just a few moments. And I'm very excited right now because this might be one of my favorite moments of the year. Kol Nidre, you're all here. No one has anywhere to be. You all look so lovely. You're not hungry yet. It's a great time for us to be here. And if you've been paying attention, which it's okay if you haven't, this moment has become, over the last 3 years or so, a moment where we talk about a Jewish prayer. I gave it away. I looked down. A Jewish custom. It's going to be prayer. All right. Hold on a second. Let me pull this out here. All right. This is a moment where we get to talk about something of ritual significance. Last year we talked about Shabbat. The year before that, I think we talked about brachot and blessings. And this year, I do, in fact, want to talk about prayer. Because prayer is one of the most important things that we do in this room, in this community. Prayer is the thing that makes us different from a Rotary Club or even a JCC. That we get together and we speak to God. It's one of the most important things that we do as a community, and it is, here's a little trivia for you, the most ubiquitous Jewish custom that is absolutely nowhere in the Torah. Nice job, everybody. There's no place in the Torah where it says, and then God said to Moses, saying, everybody daven mincha, right? That doesn't show up. There isn't a time where Miriam has to say the Shema. We don't see that at all. It comes up later, and the rabbis then have to do this dance of, well, where does it come from? And so Maimonides says it comes from this verse in the Torah that says, you shall serve the Lord. And what service is there, of course, other than prayer? It must be prayer. And he goes further to say it's not only our service, it's our service of the heart. Because prayer is our thing. Right? Torah and Torah study, that is us taking in from outside, right? The wisdom of God, the wisdom of the rabbis that have come before us, whatever it is. Prayer is our chance to create something. It's our chance to generate something that comes from us. And so the rabbis, in their investigation of where prayer comes from, they say it must come from one of two places. Either prayer comes from the sacrifices that were offered in the temple, or it comes from the ancestors in the Torah. So if it comes from the sacrifices, the reasoning for this is that the morning sacrifice every single morning in the temple was called the Shachrit sacrifice. The afternoon service that happened, again with slips here, the afternoon sacrifice was called Mincha. You've read this one before? You've heard this? Okay. And the optional evening sacrifice was called Mariv. Right. Did you know it was optional? It's not. But it was back in the day. And if the prayers come from the sacrifices, then that means our prayers are dependent on law and ritual. Right? The sacrifices were done in a very specific place, in a very specific way, at a very specific time, with an expert who was born into the job, right, leading it for everyone else. And all we did was bring our sacrifice and say, here, please do this for us, and we hope you get it right. Another rabbi says, no, it comes from our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Abraham institutes Shachrit because Abraham, it says, Vayeshkom ba'boker, he got up early in the morning to go sacrifice his son. And of course, who gets up early except to daven Shachrit? So that was what he was doing in that moment. Isaac is lasuach basadeh. He's speaking in a field in the middle of the day before he meets his beloved. And the rabbis there say, no one just wanders in a field talking to themselves. Clearly, he was praying, and that's where we get mincha from. And Jacob has his conversation with God as a part of a dream, right? With the ladder, don't you know? That happens at night, and that's where we get Mari from. So these three mystical experiences of our ancestors is where the three prayer services come from. It's a completely different read than if it comes from the sacrifices, right? If it comes from the forefathers, then it's about praying at any moment. It's about praying at a time of great need. It's about speaking a specific need. It's about some sort of individual conversation with God, right? A very different way of looking at prayer if it comes from our ancestors or it comes from our sacrifices. And this duality lives in our prayers today for sure. Because the only other thing that the rabbis can agree on, that they all agree on, is that in addition to words, prayers have to, of course, also have music. And the music, says the rabbis, is not only an important part, it might be the most important part. There is a story in the Talmud of a time in the temple, which, by the way, the temple sacrifices were accompanied with song and with music. And there's a whole discussion about which one is more important, the singers or the instrumentation, the musicians that show up, right? Because there was musical instruments as well as singing. And one rabbi says, you can start a prayer service without the singers, but not without the guitar. I'm sure it was something other than a guitar. And another says, no, you don't need a guitar, you just need a singer. And I promise we're not adding guitars to our services. That's not what this is about. But the music of our prayer is incredibly important to what we do here and to elevating our prayer. And there's been a tremendous amount of music this evening. Chazan, thank you, and to our choir and our singers and everyone who has been singing, absolutely gorgeous. Because Jewish prayer, whether it comes from the sacrifices or it comes from the fathers, has this dichotomy in it, which I'm going to call, for purposes of music, classical music and folk music. And Jewish prayer encompasses both of those things. Right? How is Jewish prayer like classical music? It's got set words and set styles. It goes back into the earliest days of antiquity. The first Siddur that we have, which, by the way, is like 80% of what we use today, is from 930 CE. That is a long time ago, and we keep the prayers as they are, and they don't change. When they do, a little bit of subtlety makes a huge difference. Right? If I say, Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, od yalucha sela, you all know I am sitting in shul at what service? Shabbat morning. But if I said, Ashrei yoshvei veitecha, od yalucha sela, you'd all look at me like, what? Because you aren't here. But that happens on Shabbat afternoon. Okay. Just a little guilt for everybody on Yom Kippur. Jewish prayer is like classical music also because there is a high bar of knowledge that needs to go into appreciation. Right? You really have to know a lot. Anyone can go sit at a classical music concert and just sort of let it wash over them and be like, oh, this seems nice. That's basically my experience at most classical music events that I go to. And you can do the same thing with prayer, but if you know more, if you know a little bit, if you pay attention, you can get so much more out of it. So, we're going to do a little demonstration right now. Chazan, if you please, come on up. Because in case you are wondering, we happen to have here at the synagogue the apex predator of the classical music style of Jewish prayer. And so, apex, there's none better. So we are going to take, just for a few minutes, one prayer that we're going to hear tomorrow, and then we're all going to sing. And we're going to talk a bit about it so that when it comes to it, we have a greater appreciation for what this prayer is. So we're on page 930. You don't need to go there if you don't want to, but if you'd like to, it's page 930 in your machzorim. That's when the Siddur of Rav Amram Gaon was. It's 330. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It's what happens when I don't look down. It's a problem for everybody. All right, so Chazan, what will you be singing for us this evening?
Okay, so we're going to be singing a melody called Ve'hakohanim, and it is the second paragraph of your page 330, right? And we sang this actually last week twice during the Musaf service, and you may know it. And if I sing with the first few notes of this piece with the words Kivodo, I think you'll know how to continue. Kivodo. Hey, you knew it. All right. Now for the full Misinai tune. I'm going to truncate it a little bit because it repeats. So here it goes. Ve'hakohanim Kishayu shomim et Hashem hanichbad v'hanovrad.
So Chazan, that's amazing. And I heard you say a thing there. You said it's a Misinai tune. So that's Hebrew for from Sinai, Mount Sinai. What do you mean when you say that this is a Misinai tune? Where is this tune from?
Misinai tune really is a code name for a very old melody. And it's not true, it's very, very true. As you know, I learned in school many, many decades ago, but that Misinai tune just means a very traditional old tune. And in fact, this melody is some 800 years old and goes back to the time of the Jews who lived in Germany. And in fact, there was a 300 families that arose from the Holy Land and emigrated through Asia Minor, modern Romania, Hungary, and into Germany, and they settled in Frankfurt on Main. And this melody, or this text that we have here, Ve'hakohanim, does come from our Mishnah, and it comes from Moed and Masechet Yoma.
That's from the 2nd century CE. I'll translate, friends, okay?
Okay.
So we have about close to a 2,000-year-old text that we are singing an 800-year-old tune to that was brought from all the places you just said, from Asia Minor through to Frankfurt on Mainz in Germany. Sorry, back to you.
That's good. And what happened here is that it's a Mishnaic account of the Avodah service. So this whole paragraph, the section that we're going to be reading tomorrow, is where the high priest entered the ancient temple's Holy of Holies and uttered God's name, not without possibilities that weren't very, very good. So, as I mentioned, that the tune is from, that comes from us, from the German city of Frankfurt am Main. The Jews basically took this melody, and because they lived in an environment that was very Germanic, they became our first Ashkenazic Jews, just because they were influenced by so many people around them, that they were very medaktikim, they were very exact in their ways. And they want to make sure, just as Rabbi mentioned just earlier with the idea of Ashrei, that every particular tune has a particular melody for a particular time. And that is their contribution to us that we have these days. And what I'd like to do is possibly give an example of what this melody really does in its melody.
I've created a monster.
Let's
do it.
Okay, so if you take a look at V'hayu Korim for one moment, right? The melody goes like this. V'hayu Korim Umishtachavim Umorim. And those outside of the Holy of Holies bent their knee, and they sang, and they prostrated themselves. And then they sing, V'noflim al pneichem. And they fell on their faces. And then the Kohen Gadol reappears, and they all sing, V'yomim baruch Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Vaed. And they say, blessed God's holy name forever and ever. The Kohen Gadol emerges, and that's a beautiful moment, at least in the Avodah service.
And what we see in that, right, because what happens in that moment is the Kohen might die. And so it gets quieter, and it gets lower, and it gets quieter, and it gets lower in this moment. And then at the very end, that part that, I don't know music, but it sounded all major and beautiful and nice, right, is because he made it, right? And he got out, and we're so happy, and it's a beautiful, thank you, Chazan.
Pleasure.
Right, now, so tomorrow, you can have a seat. That was wonderful, thank you. Thank you so much. So tomorrow when we sing this, right, we're not, look, we're also have our thumb in page 245 and we know when dinner comes and I know that too, but we're singing a 2,000-year-old text that our people have preserved all over the globe in our travels in a tune that we've kept going for 800 years. 800 years because the tune itself has this meaning packed into it. It has this trepidation for the Kohen, which is telling us that it's scary to approach the holy, and then this joy that we've made it through. And it has in this moment too of uncertainty what's known in music as a melisma. See, I did homework too, Chazan, right? Where we pack a bunch of notes into one word, perhaps because we're packing a number of different emotions into this moment. Some of us are happy, some of us are sad, some of us are scared, some of us are whatever it is, and the music reflects that. So the classical piece of prayer is incredibly important. The classical music has to do with the author's intent, right? We do it the way that Mozart wrote it, right? And that happens in our Siddur as well. And for many of us, this kind of prayer is one that I would never say this, but some might call this sort of stuffy and old and uninteresting things. But the reason why this is important so much in our world today, regardless of just that it's beautiful and fun and it's been around for 800 years and you really want to be the one that stops singing it, but it teaches us about structure and boundaries. It gives us something where we know that wherever we go in the world, we hear this tune and we will know this tune. And we can feel connected to any Jews anywhere because we share the same prayers and we share the same tunes to a great extent. And in a world where boundaries feel like they're breaking down and rules and order are in flux, where we might not be able to focus on anything for more than 2 minutes, and the world is a series of clips and sound bites and videos fed to us, the idea of having boundaries and structure, this classical form of Jewish prayer, can be our salvation because it gives us a home. It asks us to appreciate depth and nuance, and it requires effort and knowledge, something we need to be reminded of. So, if you are not a classical music kind of person, my charge to you for this year is to try to take on some piece of ritual prayer. It might be saying the Shema before you go to bed. It might be saying Moda Ani when you wake up in the morning. It might be finding a way to bring a prayer service into your life every now and again. We've got minyan twice a day. We love to have you at any of our minyanim. Please join us for those. But finding a way into the structure of prayer is important for our community and for our souls. So let's turn to folk for just a moment. Because Jewish prayer is also folk music. It's malleable. It is often simpler than what we just heard, right? Because it's got to convey its message right away. And folk music almost always has some sort of message it wants to teach us. Folk music borrows from the traditions around us. By the way, friends, the number of prayers we sing that were originally German drinking songs would knock your socks off, okay? Ask the Chazan sometime. You're never going to look at Ein Keloheinu again, I'll tell you that, the same way again. But folk prayer also allows us to create new things for new situations and new times. We create new prayers all the time. Who can think of one right now of a new prayer that we created, I can tell you, 719 days ago? That's right. We pray every week now for the safe return of the hostages. That is a prayer that was written for its moment. It speaks a traditional language, but it speaks to the moment that we need it to. That's the creation of a folk prayer. We create folk tunes. There is a lovely story about Cantor Moshe Nathanson, who was the cantor at SAJ on the Upper West Side a number of years ago. So he had a tune he wrote for the Amidah that wasn't really catching on. And the community didn't really like to sing it. It wasn't great. And so his rabbi at his pulpit, a guy named Mordechai Kaplan, perhaps you've heard of him, he said, Moshe, no one benches. No one does Birkat HaMazon after meals. And it's a beautiful thing, and they should do it. And the reason why no one does it is because there's no song for it. And it's kind of boring. And so why don't we take that tune that no one wants to sing for the Amidah, and maybe you could adapt it to Birkat HaMazon. And he did, and thanks to him and Camp Ramah, every single person now knows that tune for Birkat HaMazon. That tune's only about 50-some years old, right? But it's ubiquitous because Mordechai Kaplan saw a need and he filled it. We also use our folk prayer to adapt secular tunes for holy purposes. And you might think that this is just a new thing that we do to try to keep the kids entertained, but there's a lot of stories tonight. I'll stop in a moment, I promise. But there's a story of a Hasidic rabbi who stole one of Napoleon's marching tunes as he was marching through on his way into Russia. And then the Hasidic rabbi claims credit for the defeat of Napoleon because he took the marching tune and took it out of a profane and made it sacred by turning it into a tune for Aleinu or something like that. And that is how we take these prayers, we take the secular and we turn it into something holy. By the way, the video of me dancing behind my old Chazan as he sings to Hamilton is at 1.4 million views on YouTube, just in case anyone was wondering. So folk music, and whether it's Jewish or not, is meant to convey a message, one that's accessible to everyone. And in a world where we feel powerlessness, often in our days, the tune and the words and the message that they convey can help us feel unified and powerful. That's why marchers sing songs as they march, whether it's in military or in a protest. That's why people who are working sing songs as they work. That's why people who were enslaved use songs to transmit information to one another about where to go and how to act. These songs help us cope with the world. They help us also pass on things to our children because it's much easier to teach people a nice song than the theology behind it. So for us then, we need to take on this folk prayer as well. Right? Folk is something that we all need right now because we have a world that is in need of our spirit and our spiritual creativity. So something that we all need to try this year, it's going to be uncomfortable perhaps, is try creating a new prayer. You don't have to use Hebrew. It can be a spontaneous prayer. Stop me if you heard this one before. A guy in Manhattan, he's looking for a parking spot. And he says, God, please help me find a parking spot. That's a completely valid Jewish prayer, by the way. He can't find a parking spot. God, please help me find a parking spot. If you do, I'll double my matana gift. If you do, I'll come to Minyan every day. God, please, if you do, I'll give tzedakah. God, please. Oh, no, God, never mind. One just opened up. Thanks. But I want you to try to find a way to incorporate a spontaneous prayer into your lives. Just make something up. At the end of the day, thank God for a good day. Ask God for health or strength to get through the next one. Whatever it is, start to spark the creative juices in the soul of every single one of us, because that is something that we need sorely in the world and of the year ahead. And find a time to just sing. Sing to yourself, sing in the car, sing in the shower, wherever it is, hum a tune, come up with a song, just a little bit, because as the prophet Elisha told us, right, music opens up the doors to God. Music opens up the doors of the soul. It's something that we all need to do. And to that end, friends, we're focusing on prayer this year at the synagogue. We've been focusing on music the last year and this year. Right? We brought in a number of awesome musicians. We had a whole a cappella group here a couple of weeks ago. We have a singer-songwriter, prayer guru coming in January, I believe. And we've got a bluegrass prayer band coming in the spring. They were here last year as well, Jacob's Ladder. Please join us for that. But also, I want to thank you to our chazan and to all of the new people that are coming into our prayer service and adding new modes of prayer, new tunes, or very, very old ones, but keeping prayer alive in our community. Because there is much that we're going to need in the year ahead. There's much that we're going to need to be able to do, and there's much that we're going to need to be able to do for ourselves so that we can be the people that the world needs. We need the classical. We need the staid and historic. We need to push ourselves to learn and appreciate subtlety. We need to honor those who have come before us and fit ourselves into something larger and historic than ourselves, even putting the values of the past above our current tastes. We also need the folk. We need the easily accessible. We need to open our spirits and the creativity of our souls. We need to convey meaning and comfort to those without power or hope. We need to create things that we can all do together. Friends, we need to sing together. So, we're going to take a second, the last thing we're doing here, and we are going to sing my favorite song of all time, of Jewish prayer. I'm sure there's others. The words that you need to know are Ilu Finu. My wife just gave me a look because I said, I'm going to sing Ilu Finu tonight, and she goes, don't do it. But we'll see. Ilu means if it were, or if it were not. Finu means our mouths. Malay Shira Kayam. If it were that our mouths were malay, full of shira, of song, like the ocean. This is something we sing every Shabbat morning. It's a prayer that we sing. What does it mean, by the way, that our mouths are full of prayer like the ocean? It means that we can't even open our mouths without just prayer spilling out, like rushing out. But also the ocean ecosystem is vast, and there's a lot of different things in there. And all of our prayers come from a different place. They come from a different background. They come with different goals, but they all come together to make the ocean of our prayers. So, Ilu Finu. Can you say it with me? Ilu Finu. Great. We're going to sing. There's two parts. We're going to sing them both. We're going to do all one first. Uh-oh. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu. That's it. That's all you need to do, okay? So we're going to try it. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu. Finu Nu Nu. One more time. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu. Second part goes. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu Male Shira Kayam. Okay? Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu Male Shira Kayam. Beautifully done, friends. By the way, this is a total folk tune. I asked 20 different people. No one knows where it comes from, and everyone sings it slightly differently. So, and raise your hand. Does anyone know the secret third part here? Okay, never mind. Good, fine. All right, so here's what I want. This is gonna work. If you're right down the middle here, going this way, you are my Ilu Finu low part, okay? So we're all going to do it together, but then you guys are going to jump up to that second higher part. So all of us together on the low. Ready? Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu. Keep going. Ilu Lulu Finu Nu Nu. Ilu Lulu. Are you guys ready? Finu Nu Nu. Ilulu, finu, nu, nu, male, shira, kayam. Keep going. Ilu, afinu, male, shira, kayam. I can hear the ocean. Ilu, afinu, male, shira, kayam. One more time. Ilu, finu, nu, nu, male, shira. You guys all drop down to the low one together. Ilulu, finu, nu, nu. Ilulu, finu, nu, nu. Gemar Tov, may it be a year of togetherness and song. We conclude our services now on, I'm on our Vakonim page.